Give me your picks, give me your insights. I want the bets from Betting Weekly. Because we win, that is our motto. Sometimes we win, sometimes we don't win. Don't give us the bird, don't give us your stink eye. We try our best and we're successful. Come watch our show, Bet River sponsors. It's time to start, enjoy the show.
Welcome aboard, everyone, to Betting Weekly Live. It's Wednesday, the 28th of May. You with Steve Wyss and James Eastham. And today is the day of the Conference League final between Real Betis and Chelsea. The culmination of our Europa League and Conference League adventures this season, James. It's been quite a journey for us. It's a bit emotional now. It's the end of the road. It's been an absolute pleasure. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling really good, Steve. It's great to be here. Hello, everybody. Yeah, you look back to those dark days of winter and autumn where we were covering the group stages and all sorts of massive handicaps on games between red hot favourites and huge underdogs. It's been an amazing competition. Listen, it obviously ranks down the list of competitions in Europe, and a lot of people will spend a lot more time certainly watching games in the Champions League and also the Europa League. But it's been absolutely fascinating to get here. All those Thursday rounds we've had through October, November, December, and so on. And now we're here. And it's certainly one team we expected to be in the final, isn't it, in Chelsea? But it's going to be a fascinating game against Real Betis. And I think we'll get into it, but there's obviously a lot to say about it.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. You know, you think back to those sort of December dark days, matches in Iceland, places like that, Finland.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think I probably had more fun talking about the Conference League games with you this season than any other, because it's so unique, and you've been cashing on. You know, it felt like the Chelsea bet every single week on a handicap or some sort of form. So yeah, it's been a great journey, and congratulations, James, for your brilliant season on Betting Weekly.
Thank you.
Time as well. I think someone else put that in the comments. Ming Chung, good to see you. I think it was nearly plus 29 units you accumulated on that show. I did manage to help the profit total in the end by getting.
Yes, you did.
So
yeah.
At least I did something.
Well, do you know what you did, Steve? Well done to us, because listen, it's difficult. We're just going to go slightly off piste here and talk about the weekly show. But yeah, we did both make a profit. And I think I said on the final show, although I did end up with a really, really big profit, we got to remember people join our shows at various points in the season, don't they? So I'd actually been running fairly level for most of the second half of the season, whereas you actually built up a profit in the second half of the season. So depending where people would have started to watch the show on a regular basis, they'll have got, I think, benefit from both of us. And yeah, we both ended up where we wanted to be, didn't we, Steve? Which is in profit for the season. So it was a really good team effort, I think.
You're a very modest man, James. That's what I'll say. Bigging me up there in the second half of the season. Very much appreciated. But welcoming everyone. C Bills, that's a name I've not seen for a while in here. He's saying, let's have a day for Chelsea on the money line. Dave Clark, good to see you as well. Ming Chung, like I said. Mikhail Munch, that's a great name. Good to see you. Daniel Lucani, Duncan ZT as well. And producer Troy. I know Troy's been a big. He's enjoyed the Europa and the Conference League. And I think a lot of people don't expect to enjoy those competitions, but they do, both from a watching perspective and a betting perspective. G. Davis, good to see you as well. Before we move on to, as Kit Kat makes his first appearance on this show for about 3 weeks or a month. Don't set on my keyboard, otherwise he'll end the stream. He's messing around here. I need to go and mention some notable winners and losers from yesterday on the sportsbook. And the New York Knicks were not good for the bettors. A $75,000 play on them plus 3 was unfortunately a loser. Also a $25,000 play on the money line. Another $15,000 on the Knicks on the plus 3. They didn't serve the bettors very well yesterday. Notable winners and losers on the soccer. Biggest bet was 10,000 in the Copa Libertadores River Plate against Universitario, and that was over 2.5 goals. That was unfortunately a loser too. We did have a winner on the live show yesterday from Rory Barlow, who correctly went in with his same game parlay in the Estudiantes match. So well done to Rory Barlow. And he had some great points yesterday on the Conference League final as well, which we're going to talk about soon. That's the headline game. We've also got some Norwegian games on the slate, which I'm going to talk about. And we'll have a look ahead to the French Ligue playoff relegation battle tomorrow. Metz travelling to Stade de Reims. But really, it's all about one match today, isn't it? Is Real Betis against Chelsea. And we talked about it yesterday with Rory Barlow. He gave us some interesting angles on Real Betis. You've got even more here, James, and especially from the Chelsea perspective. You've been on their court all season, really, in the matches. Minus 127 now on the money line. They were minus 121 yesterday, so they have been nibbled in. Real Betis plus 320. The big mover has been on that both teams to score yes market. I gave this out on the newsletter. Do subscribe to that if you've not already. Rory Barlow gave it as a lean yesterday. It's now minus 152, both teams to score yes. You're obviously on a much better odds than that, James. You still back that at minus 152. And in the main markets here, which would you point people towards?
Minus 152. It's quite short, isn't it? I went on both teams to score as my main pick on this game at the start of the week on the newsletter. It was minus 110 at the time. I was straight onto that when we all put our picks forward on various sporting events at the start of the week to go into our newsletter. It was a really easy main pick on the game for me. It looked way too big. I know it was minus money, but minus 110 looked great value to me. So I'm not that surprised it's come into minus 152. Would I take it at minus 152? Yeah, maybe. Maybe I would, because I think this is a game between two teams, Steve, who, if you've watched them, they're good going forward, and I'm not sure there's a great deal of quality in defence. A lot of the both teams to score pick for me is about Betis, actually, more than Chelsea. I think, listen, you had Ruri on the show yesterday. Ruri knows a lot more about Real Betis than most people out there. But my reading of Real Betis is that they will have a go here. I don't think they'll feel they can win this by being defensive against a good Chelsea side with good attacking players. Lots of goals in Real Betis games recently. I think it's 14 of their last 15 games in all competitions, both teams to score yes, has paid out. Lots of over 2.5 goals during that run as well. So I think it's really Betis who will set that tone towards the both teams to score. After that, it's like you say, would you still take the price because it's come in so much? There has been, I think, a bit of movement today. Minus 152, like you say, Steve. I think he might have moved to minus 148. It's sort of wobbling around at that point now, but very much at that point rather than where it was at the beginning of the week. So listen, it depends what people feel comfortable doing, whether they think minus 148, minus 152 is a value play. I certainly felt minus 110 was good value, and it's gone now. So I'm very confident that we'll have both teams to score. I think it's a great call. Then it's about the price, really, and what people want to do. But as I say, for me, it's largely about Betis. I think they will try and set the tone in an attacking sense. I don't think they'll believe they can win this game by being defensive. I think it would be very risky when you see the team that it looks like Chelsea are going to field. It's going to be stronger than what we've seen from them in much of the competition, especially in midfield. We can talk in more detail about the teams, but yeah, it's my main pick, and it would still be my main pick, and I would still be advising people to look at it. After that, it's whether people think the price is worth taking, really.
Oh, absolutely. Something can still be value at minus 152, even if you backed it at minus 110. Just listen to Neil Channing on the dojo. Minus 1,000 shots can be value. Yes, minus 2,000 shots can be value. But that the Betting Weekly newsletter, I put the link there. If you are new to the channel, do subscribe to it. It's completely free. We have 2 newsletters a week. The Insider comes out ahead of the weekend, and I can reveal this weekend on the Insider, every single handicapper. It's going to be an in-depth Champions League preview. Every single handicapper is going to have a pick on the Champions League final. So you can compare those picks. Might be a couple of extra things as well about players to watch. But do subscribe to that newsletter. We can, especially the one that comes out on the Monday, we've had some really good success with the futures bets. We can put bets out earlier in the week as well, and before the prices do crash. You do mention about the Chelsea. Let's talk a bit about Chelsea now, because we need to sort of. I mean, it's incredible to me that there's sort of speculation about the starting 11. Some people were saying, are they going to be going necessarily at their best? Are they going to save some players for the bench? Chelsea are the underwhelming. They are the clear favourites to win the trophy, minus 225, minus 127 on that money line. What sort of approach do you expect to see from Chelsea in this fixture? Are they going to come out of the trap straight away, try and dominate? Do you think they're going to play a more patient, long-term game, feel things out with Betis? And you said you're expecting to see a very strong Chelsea side out. I mean, that might sound obvious, but they have been obviously rotating in this competition, and the manager might want to stay faithful to certain players.
Yeah, he might do. I mean, I've been looking at various websites and newspapers today to get a view on the expected 11. We obviously don't know at this stage what it will be, but the top 3 players there in the goal scorer market for Chelsea, Nicholas Jackson and Cole Palmer and Madueke. Most places believe all 3 of those will start. Now, that's an improvement already, isn't it, on what Chelsea have put out for much of this competition, because we didn't see Cole Palmer, for example, in the group stage. I think the big talking point for me is midfield. A lot of predicted lineups have both Caicedo and Enzo Fernandez in their starting lineup. That's obviously a huge improvement in what they've done in midfield. Now, how will it affect their approach to the game? I don't think it will affect it too much. They'll expect to control midfield, obviously a bit better with those players in the side. But when I look through the Chelsea team and I look at the way they play, they're obviously going to expect to win the final, and they're obviously taking it very, very seriously. But I don't think they'll necessarily come out the traps super fast here. They've obviously got players even further back who can be dangerous if it is Cucurella at left back, and maybe Reece James, or maybe Malo Augusto at right back. So an attacking approach generally, yes, but not necessarily straight from the start. I'm not quite sure that the midfield is set up to do that. So, let's wait and see. I think looking through the Chelsea side, I'm not 100% convinced by the central defensive pairing. There's people out there that will have watched Chelsea a lot more closely than I have this season. So I'm slightly reluctant to go too deep into giving a view on areas I haven't seen that much of. But I think, as I say, Betis will look at this as a team they can get at. And I think they'll also look at the Chelsea midfield and attack and think we are definitely going to come under pressure in this game at some point. And this is Betis speaking, and we're a side who don't keep clean sheets. So I think if Betis are being realistic about their chances, I think they're going to have to score here to have any hope of winning the trophy. That's how I would feel if I was Real Betis, because, however Chelsea start, and whether they start quickly or just start more cautiously over the 90 minutes, they are going to trouble you. So that's how I sort of see it. I'm not 100% clear on the dominance of Chelsea over the 90 minutes and how they might start the game, but I do think Betis will be quite positive, because I don't think they've got any other way to play it. Well, one other point, Steve, it's more on Betis, this, and Chelsea, but one reason why, and we'll come on to the match odds, where I think maybe Betis are slightly underrated. I just wanted to touch on Betis's results recently against big sides in Spain. Now, people might not think this has any bearing on it, but if you look at their results in La Liga, they did draw away to Barcelona in April, 1-1. And they did win at home to Real Madrid in March, 2-1. Then if you go back to December, they drew 2-2 with Barcelona. They have lost against the big sides, but the 2 most recent games against the big 2 in Spain, they won 1, they drew 1, and they both scored and conceded in both goals. Now, you may feel that's got no bearing, which would be fair enough. I only mention it because I think Betis, it will give you confidence, I think, if you've performed well and avoided defeat and won against sides who, on paper are actually better, aren't they, than Chelsea? So, one of those games was away from home, the draw against Barcelona. So I think there's reasons why Betis will be confident generally. And I think there's reasons why Betis will be confident of scoring. But as I say, I find it very difficult to see them keeping a clean sheet. So, yeah, that's why I lean towards both teams to score. Chelsea, as I say, in terms of their approach, I'm not 100% sure, but we do think they're going to be stronger than they've been in the competition for most of this season. And I think that explains why they are quite a short price, both to lift the trophy and to win in 90 minutes, because I think they are maybe a little bit short.
Yeah, it makes some very, very good points there. I'm just going to go through some comments here. Simon M says, good as always, guys. Appreciate that, Simon. He thinks Betis will give Chelsea a fright. He's thinking 1-1 and extra time and penalties. Someone else was on about extra time and penalties as a possible here. Brian says both teams score second half. Ginepi, and I do get this point, Ginepi, because I've often banged on about cup finals, go unders, and low scoring contests. They can tighten up. So I would totally understand that point. As I said yesterday, I think this is the one final of the three of them which could explode. Less pressure in general. It just feels like maybe more open. That's just the way I see it. If it was tight and it was 0-0, would I be completely stunned? No, because that's what happens in cup finals sometimes.
Yeah.
Duncan Evans, and we are going to talk about Anthony. More comments about Anthony as well. And that Spanish team's in the final. Did you see that stat?
It's crazy. Today? Yes, I did see that. He brought that up. It was a brilliant stat. Was it 26 or 27 as I was talking? Yeah, remarkable record.
I was going to look back and see how many of the times the Spanish team was the favourite. I'm guessing they probably would have been the favourite on quite a lot of occasions.
Yeah, Real Madrid, you would think.
Still, incredible run. There's been some dogs that have won on there. This is a really good question. I've just been working out my estimations now based on what we expect the teams to be from Dave Clark. At what price would you bet on Chelsea to win? In 90 minutes, I would need plus 125 or plus 130. And to win the trophy, I would need minus 150. I'm not going to get that. So that's why I wouldn't be betting on them, James. Let's talk about these odds. What is a fair price inside 90 minutes for Real Betis, tie, and Chelsea, do you think? Minus 127 in 90 minutes. I think that's a bit on the short side.
I think that's a bit on the short side too, Steve. I've not done the prices in as much detail as you, but I would look for plus money on Chelsea to win in 90 minutes. And then obviously
totally agree.
Subsequent markets would change on the back of it. So I agree with you. I think they're too short to win it in 90 minutes and therefore too short to win the trophy. Minus 225. I wouldn't take that. So as I say, my main pick on the game would be the both teams to score. Yes. My lean on the game and looking at the match odds market and connected markets would actually be Real Betis on the Asian handicap with a plus 0.75 goal start. It's minus 136. With that, you'll only lose half your stakes if Chelsea were to win it by a single goal in 90 minutes. And, you'll make a profit if Betis avoided defeat. I can't personally see Chelsea having a very big chance of winning this by 2 or more goals. I'm not saying it can't happen because there's good quality in that team, but I tend to think Betis are slightly underrated here. If you look through the team, it's a pretty good starting 11. I think that they're likely to field here. Is it as strong as Chelsea's? No. I think individually, would you put more Chelsea players in a combined 11? I think you would, especially midfield. I saw a comment there about Betis. I think the word might have been overrun in midfield. Somebody said, I think that's possibly true. I think they face a challenge in midfield, but there are some good individuals in the Betis side. There's some good experience at various levels, admittedly, but you look at fullback, it might be Rodriguez at left back. It might be Sabali for Betis at right back. Players who've got good experience at various international levels. Cedric Bakambu would probably fall into that category as well. Isco would obviously fall into that category. There's also, I don't know, again, if people think this is a factor, but is Pellegrini a factor? The fact he can talk to his players about Chelsea with some experience of having worked in the Premier League. Would that help if he can maybe give them some insights or maybe take some of the magic or the sort of the status out of Chelsea in the way that he would talk to his players? I don't know. I mean, Duncan made the comment there about Chelsea maybe being priced up on the team they were 5 years ago. There's an argument to be made that Chelsea have already obviously lost some of the status they used to have. So I personally don't think Betis would be overawed. I think if they approach the game correctly, both psychologically and technically, I think there's reasons why they can, as somebody said, give Chelsea a scare there. So I tend to agree with you, Steve, looking at the match odds, both in 90 minutes and also to lift the trophy. Chelsea, they look a little bit too short to me at minus money. Minus money to win the trophy, fair enough, but minus money to win in 90 minutes, it would be too short for me.
I mean, Duncan maybe does make a little bit of a point. Chelsea are often going to be backed and priced on reputation. Also, that they're a Premier League team. It's been a good year for Premier League teams in these, Europa League and stuff, though. So, that's something. Brian says Fernandez score will be carded. Where was I here? Ginepi says Chelsea do win a lot of 1-0 games. He thinks that he doesn't see Chelsea not winning in 90 minutes. The plus 0.75 Asian handicap lean you've got there, I mean, this is interesting. A lot of people will be put off by taking handicaps, especially get confused when we're looking at a quarter of a goal and 3/4 of a goal. But for example, the plus a half Asian handicap on Betis, which is exactly the same bet as draw double chance, is minus 103. if you take the plus 0.75 Asian handicap at minus 130, which is, I mean, minus 130 is still a very good price. You will only lose half your stake if they lose by exactly 1 goal, which is very possible in a cup final.
Yeah,
so
true. Yeah,
this is the best way we can explain these Asian handicaps, and they are worth looking at if you like that sort of insurances. And I'm a big fan of that. Same with Asian goal lines as well.
Yeah, very much. It's interesting. I mean, the points being made there about Chelsea and how they're being priced up. Does reputation come into it? I think obviously in the Champions League, it sounds silly to say this, but maybe there's a bit more weight put on how teams have played this year and the individuals. Maybe a little bit more unknown in this competition, right? Because you tend to get at least one team who come through who don't necessarily have a lot of experience of getting to this stage. There's possibly a little bit less certainty about how a team is going to perform because it's a slightly lower level of competition. I don't know, but it's a fairly safe thing, isn't it, to price Chelsea up as clear favourites? You understand it. And as I say, if you look at the individuals that we think are going to start, Chelsea, you have to say, have got more individuals that would make a combined 11. It's just the team element to Betis. The fact, as you've said, Steve, they're under no real pressure here. They've got a good manager who's very experienced at putting together a team to play well in this sort of occasion. I just feel that the fact they're under no pressure and they go into it with players who probably aren't that scared of Chelsea and attacking players who probably feel they can cause the defence of Chelsea problems. It just makes me think the minus 127 on Chelsea in 90 minutes is a little bit too short.
All right, Simon M. Do you know what? I looked at the weather forecast for all the Norwegian games today and tomorrow, but I didn't look at the forecast here for the final. Of course, is being played in Poland. A place called Wrocław is how you pronounce it, I do believe. Yes. And there is indeed some thunderstorm warnings. Thunderstorms are hard to predict, especially in Europe. So we just don't know there. There is a chance of a downpour. So do bear that in mind if you're betting on whatever market you want. For me, weather's a difficult one, James, because unless you know for sure what it's going to be, then it can be quite tricky. And I've sometimes bet on a match or not betted on a game because of weather, and I've lost money from it if I change my mind. So, crikey, I mean, that's tricky, but
I'm the same as you, Steve. I'm not saying I don't take it into account at all, but it is tricky, even on the day of the game. And I'm just having a little look myself now at the latest forecast. Even on the day of the game, you can get forecasts which don't turn out to be quite right. Do I take it into account? The one I take into account the most actually is really strong winds. If I think of games in France, there's various, just to use that as an example, there's various parts of the country that have a particular habit of being hit by strong winds at certain times of the year. And then when you watch the game yourself, I've been at a few of those games in the stadium, you can see the impact it can have on the players, trying to use it to their advantage when the wind's behind them, but sometimes getting that wrong and then struggling when they're playing into the wind. So it's not that it's something people shouldn't take into account. It's just obviously something that in my view, you need to be sure of. But really interesting information there, because like you, Steve, I hadn't looked to the weather either for this game.
I agree with you. I think the wind has a really big effect, and especially when I've done some Scandinavian bets. There's a place called Haugesund in Norway in the top flight that can get really windy there. I've never seen it not windy. What would be the top ground in France, do you think, for strong wind to have an effect? Somewhere like Brest, maybe, or something like that?
Yeah, that corner of France. And also in the spring months, Marseille in the old days before they put the roof on, which obviously I'm going back a bit now, aging myself, but that used to be, just open to the wind at various points. You get those stadiums as well. I'm trying to think where I've been to them in France now, where they're sort of square-sided, but they haven't filled in the corners. You can really feel the wind there sometimes blowing through. So it can be a factor. I think, the more closed modern stadiums, it's maybe less so. And obviously some stadiums like Lille, right, they close the roof sometimes. And although Lille can still be quite windy with the roof closed in my experience. But it can be a factor. I'm with you there, Steve. It's wind more than rain would sort of put me off betting on a game if I think it's going to be strong. So interesting point. Let's see what the weather's like when we get to kick off tonight.
Yeah, I mean, even with something like snow, I've known some really high scoring snow games, but also some really low scoring snow games. It can be quite variable. Let's get on to a bet, and I've gone through the player props market. Rory did a great job with this yesterday, and there's a double I really like here, same game parlay, and it is Anthony to have a shot on target and Mark Cucurella to have a shot. So I just need one shot from Cucurella and one shot on target from Anthony, plus 150 that pays. Cucurella's had a shot in 9 of his last 11 games, and he had at least one shot in both legs of the quarterfinals and semi-finals. And we know what sort of form Anthony has been in. He's minus 159 now, Anthony, to have a shot on target on his own. This is a player that everyone's talking about, James.
Yeah,
he could have a massive impact on this final. Would you go near him in any of the markets to score or assist plus 180 now?
Yeah, I would. I wouldn't talk anybody out of that. If they wanted to look at it, I'd be more inclined to go on the shot on target, even though it's minus 159. A player in great form, a player who is one of, not the only one who's played well, having left United recently. You think of Scott McTominay and the week he's had at Napoli. So he could have a big bearing here. In terms of motivation, it's a final, right? It's a chance to win a trophy. They're all going to be motivated, but you do wonder if the chance to impress against a Premier League team is going to be on his mind. Not in any sense of trying to get revenge on anybody, or maybe a little bit prove people wrong, but maybe almost prove himself wrong, because he obviously didn't perform as well as he can while he was at Man United. He took a lot of criticism. There was a lot of criticism of United as well for the money they paid for him. It's a real opportunity for him, as I say, not just to get that trophy, but to show, a UK audience or an English audience a little bit more of what he can do. So it might be an extra factor in him trying to impress individually, but it's by impressing individually in the last few months that he's made such a big impact for Real Betis. So I think he could have huge impact on the game, Stephen. If you look through that Betis side that we think will be starting the game, there's obviously other names in it of players who can have an impact, but there's an argument that Anthony's the main man, really, and the most likely to make the difference for them in the final third. So I think he is a player that people will be looking at in the player markets. As I say, I'd quite like him in the over 0.5 shot on target market. I don't have a player pick on the game. I had a look through all the markets. There was nobody for me that stood out enough to make them a pick or a lean, but I fully understand anybody looking at those player markets on the Betis side to be focusing on Anthony for sure.
Yeah, and I think some will be looking at Isco as well to score or assist at plus 205. It can be a tricky one, actually, with the player prop. I've really struggled with the Chelsea player props in this game, but the Cucurella shot did certainly catch my eye. Hey is backing Anthony to score over 1.5 goals at 40-1. What price is it to have a hat-trick? It might not even be offered, but I imagine at least 100-1. Harry Doty says Madueke to score. I'd be looking at his shots, actually, Harry. That he really likes his shots.
Yeah.
If he scores a goal, it's often a really good one, isn't it? He's not going to do tap-ins too often. Right, betting breakdowns for the game. 76% of the money is on Chelsea on the money line, 77% of the tickets, and on the over-under market, 59% of the money is on the over, 68% of the tickets on the over. So that's pretty split on the over-under. Biggest bet on the game so far, this was as of a couple of hours ago, $6,000 on both teams to score yes at minus 120. So someone's followed you in there, James. I suspect earlier in the week, one of the bigger prop bets of the game, Real Betis under 3.5 shots on target at minus 108. And the most popular player props in the game by total game tickets, Cole Palmer over 0.5 shots on target, Anthony to score or assist, and Anthony over 0.5 shots on target. No real surprise in those markets there. Palmer's due a big game, isn't he? No one's really talking about Palmer heading into this one, but he's due a game.
He is. Isn't it crazy, Steve? We're previewing the final. We're nearly half an hour into this show and we've barely mentioned Cole Palmer. It shows, doesn't it, the degree to which he's sort of dropped off people's radar in the last 3 or 4 months. Great player, obviously, and was fantastic, obviously, last season. Huge, and then went into the Euros and was big. So I think he was maybe due a slight dip, and I think Chelsea fans would say he's had that. But I agree with you. Is he a big game player? I think he's already shown as he is. I don't think he'll be particularly affected by the fact that he's been less decisive in recent months. So maybe this is the time to be with him, right? Ready to produce something on the big stage. As I say, this isn't a competition that's really been his anyway this season, in that he wasn't involved in the group stage like other Chelsea players. He was he was left to focus on the league, and they've picked more backup players in the competition. But now's a chance for him if he does start tonight. What an opportunity to make his mark on a big game. So if you actually look through the two likely starting lineups, he is the class attacker, on the pitch. We've talked a lot about Anthony, and you can argue that he's the form attacker on the pitch, but who's the better player? Most people would probably say Cole Palmer. So he is a man to look at. Duncan's making a good point there, isn't afraid to shoot. I think that's a really good point as well. So a player to start looking at, I think, as we get towards kickoff. We think, listen, we don't know the starting lineups. We think he's going to start. And as I say, some people want a bit more form from a player going into a final, but he's still a great player, isn't he?
Apparently the Anthony hat-trick is at 425 to 1. Good luck with that one, Hey. But Hey also says he really likes Chelsea -1 on the Asian handicap. That plus 150 there. Palmer isn't afraid to shoot, like Duncan said. David's talking about Cole Palmer's love life. Not sure who he's been dating, but apparently he's not been running on all cylinders since that's been happening. SW, don't worry, we're going to move on to the Norwegian games now. So yeah, we've probably previewed this Conference League today, yesterday. Best of luck, whatever you're taking on it. And hopefully we can cash several winners. We're going to talk about tomorrow's French game soon, but we've got some Norwegian matches. We've got Brann Molde, that's tomorrow. I'll talk about that a bit later. But two games kick off today. Fredrikstad Rosenborg in 90 minutes, and then Bodo Glimt Viking kicks off at exactly the same time as the Conference League final. I have no idea who the hell schedules that. But it's very strange. Anyway, Fredrikstad Rosenborg, I believe this is a game I'm going to get involved in, and I'm going to be looking at Fredrikstad Tino bet at -120. And I'm also looking at Fredrikstad double chance and both teams score no at +188, because I've got a feeling this could be low scoring, 1-0 or 0-0. Both sides had a really bad weekend. Both conceded 4 goals respectively, which is very unusual for these teams. They're very defensive, Rosenborg, and especially Fredrikstad, very defensive, quite anti-football actually. Known for their prowess from set pieces are Fredrikstad, dangerous from long throws, corners, things like that. 1-0 win at home here wouldn't surprise me, with a goal from a corner or something like that, or a scrappy goal. Got a big concern at the back for Rosenborg. Nemsik is ruled out, injured for a month. Their centre back, I think he could be the best centre back in the Norwegian League right now, or certainly one of them. He's been a long time since he's missed a proper game. So I don't really know how Rosenborg are going to cope without him. I feel like both sides are running on fumes. They've been involved in cup games, extra time, things like that. The games are really racking up for Rosenborg and Fredrikstad. So there's a few doubts here, but I do think Fredrikstad draw no bet -120 is worth a look. This Bodo Glimt game against Viking, I wish I could advise something good on this, but I can't. I believe that the game lines are actually where they should be. If anything, actually a little bit of value on Viking, who are top of the table. But Bodo Glimt hammered Rosenborg 4-0 at the weekend. They showed why they're the best team in this country, and why they will be entering the Champions League final qualifying round as a seed in late August. If Bodo Glimt play at their best, they'll win the game. Viking do have plenty of offensive quality. A couple of players to watch out for on the goal scorers market. Kasper Warts-Ho, anytime scorer for Bodo Glimt, -120, and Zlatko Tripic for Viking, +200. Both players, I do believe, will be on penalties and are the obvious goal-scoring threat. Viking employed a completely different strategy against Glimt last season. They operated defensively in both contests, and it ended 1-0 and 1-1. So they have a specific game plan for Bodo Glimt, which is why another reason I'll be a little bit wary of getting involved here. And the forecast isn't great. Rain around in the north of Norway for this game. So this could go over or under. I'm not sure. The goal scorers is what I would be looking at. I'll talk about Brann Molde a bit later. But on Thursday, the last game of the French season, Stade de Reims against Metz in the relegation playoff game. To access this market on Bet Rivers, you've got to do Ligue 2. It's not listed as a League 1 game. But one of these teams will be playing top flight football next season. And it's 1-1 draw after the first leg. Stade de Reims +118 to win the second leg. and Metz at plus 225. What a week it's been for Stade de Reims, as we mentioned on last week's show. Cup finalists, that didn't go too well. 1-1 draw in the first leg was a much better result for them. And now it's all on the line, James. How do you see this second leg going tomorrow?
Well, I think it will be close, just as the first leg was last week. So you said it was 1-1 last week. For those who didn't watch the game, I think 1-1 was a fair result. Reims didn't play particularly well. They went a goal behind to Metz. Metz are the team from Ligue 2 that finished, they finished third in that division and then got through the playoffs within Ligue 2 to then meet Reims in this playoff final. So Reims got back into it and equalised. Both goals were from set pieces last week, and I think 1-1 was a fair result. I think it will be close again this week. I didn't see much between the teams last week. You've mentioned that Reims had the French Cup final at the weekend, where they did, we should say, pick their strongest 11 pretty much. So they took that game seriously against PSG in terms of the lineup that they put out. I didn't really feel they ever thought they were going to be competitive in that game. You know, what were they, 3-0 down at half time? It was all over. They had to play it. But it's been ruined really as an occasion for Reims as that French Cup final by the fact they landed in this playoff with the two legs of it either side of that cup final. So they, for me, didn't put everything they had into it, which is understandable because this two-legged playoff is more important for the long-term future of the club. They brought 3 players off at half-time in that French Cup final, which you could argue was because they'd been poor in the first half, but it was also maybe saving them a little bit as well for this second leg. So I think they'll be a little bit tired. I think it's been a tough schedule for them. I think they're still recovering in a way psychologically from having fallen into the playoff position because that wasn't expected. It only happened on the final day and it happened in fairly dramatic circumstances. So they've had to get their heads around the fact they're in the playoff while also dealing with that cup final. So it's been a lot for them to take on. This is the third game in 9 days, the first leg, then the French Cup final, and then this. So Metz arguably have a slight advantage in that sense. They are away from home here in the second leg, and Reims are obviously favourites to win it, as you've said, Steve, at home. But I think it'll be really close because the first leg was really close, and I just feel that French Cup final would have taken quite a bit out of Reims, even if they try to hold something back. Whereas Metz have just been able to sit back and prepare for this second leg since the first leg last week. So, yeah, I quite fancy Metz to cause them some trouble here. I don't have a pick or a play or a lean on the money line, but I'd be inclined to look at Metz on the handicap. If I was to look at either of the two sides, I would not be surprised to see the same outcome as last week, a 1-1 draw or a draw of some kind, and the game to go to extra time. I think it will be fairly close. My pick on the game is both teams to score yes, minus 127. I think that's a fairly good pick. I flagged up last week on the show when we talked about the first leg, I think it was, that Metz finished the regular League 2 season with an extraordinarily high number of high-scoring games. Their final 10 League 2 matches all went over 2.5 goals and all went both teams to score yes. Then they were averaging over 4 goals a game. Now, it only finished 1-1 last week, but the attacks for me were better than the defenses in that game as well. The fact they both scored from set pieces showed maybe a bit of vulnerability in those situations. And this is sudden death, right? It's going to get decided on the night who goes through and who goes through, who stays in League 1 or gets promoted to League 1 and who ends up in League 2. So I personally think both of these teams are a bit better going forward than defensively, and I move towards both teams to score yes for that reason. That minus 127 is fair. So that's how I see it. I think, as I say, it'll be a close game. Obviously, a very nervy occasion. It's a home game for Reims. It's a 20,000 sellout, we're told, so they're going to have good support. I think the Metz away allocation will be sold out for this game as well. So massive amount riding on the game, but just looking at the two sides, their prep for the game, how that first leg went, I think largely speaking, it should be close. And I tend to favour goals over no goals in this game.
Yeah, it's a great breakdown. I agree. I think both teams score yes looks overpriced at minus 127. I repeat what I said last week. I think Stade de Reims are going to get relegated. I think Metz on the Tino bet is a bet I'm going to take as well here, plus 125. Wouldn't surprise me if it went all the way, extra time and penalties. I just think the pressure now is really intense. The restructuring of French football is really, I mean, we look at Ligue 2 and the National League, which is the third tier now. You know, there's 18 teams in each league, 17 in the National this season. But I mean, a lot of big teams have struggled. I mean, Clermont nearly got relegated again. They just survived by the skin of their teeth. Teams like Stavanger de Caen have gone down.
Yeah.
Look at the National, Châteauroux, Nîmes are down into the fourth tier now of French football. The Sochaux are down there in 12th. You don't want to go down. In the past, if you went down, it was quite easy to come back up straight away, I felt. And some teams still do it. Well-run clubs like Lorient, they do it. But if you slide down the trapdoor, I think the pressure is on Rams. I actually think they'd do all right if they went down. Yeah. They are generally well-run, but pressure nevertheless.
I would agree, Steve. I think there's huge pressure on them. I mean, I touched on it there, but I think also the shock of being in this playoff is not to be underestimated. There were some teams who were expecting almost from day one of the season to maybe be in this playoff. You know, we talked a lot on our weekly show about Le Havre. They were the team that managed to escape the playoff position on the final day with almost the final kick of the season. Reims, where they didn't expect to do anything incredible in League One, but they were out of this playoff position for most of the season. And even when their form was faltering in the final 2 months, they still had a bit of a cushion, and some teams below them continue to drop points. So, as I say, it was an awful lot for them to adapt to very quickly on that final day when they found themselves in this position. And then it also had the double whammy of them having to completely rethink their preparations for the French Cup final, which it went from being what should have been a week of celebration last week with just the French Cup final to deal with, to having to get their heads around, this playoff. Now, if they were going into the second leg with a goal lead or a 2-goal lead, it would be a completely different sort of psychological challenge for them. But I agree with you. They're level, going into this home leg, and they're playing a Metz side who will probably think, do you know what, we were as good as Reims last weekend. We've got nothing to fear here. Yeah, Metz have got quite a lot of practice of going between the divisions recently. They're kind of used to these sort of scenarios. And because they've been a League One side a lot recently, I don't think they'll, feel particularly overawed by facing, Reims. They'll probably feel they're as big a club as Reims with some justification over the last, 2 decades or whatever. So it's a fairly even contest, this. And I think that pressure at home in trying to hold on to their League One position is something the players they're going to have to handle it, but there's definitely some pressure there. So, yeah, I tend to agree with you when I look through the prices on this. I don't, as I say, have a pick or a lean on the match odds market, but I find it hard to make a case for backing Reims with any confidence here because, as I say, I think it's a fairly close game on paper when you look at the two sides, and an awful lot of pressure on a Reims side who've had less time and sort of headspace, if you like, to prepare specifically for this match because of that French Cup final they've just had.
I think it's a very good point. Really good point indeed. Are you going to predict 1-1 here, James? Or are you going? Yeah, I would go
1-1 again. As I say, my pick on the game's both teams to score, yes, but a second 1-1 playoff scoreline here wouldn't surprise me at all.
Yeah, I'm going to have to say 2-1 because I'm going to back that Tino bet on for Metz. That 1-1 would not shock me in at all. There's plenty of live streams you can watch today on the BetRivers app or website. MLS, someone was mentioning MLS. We haven't got any picks on it, sadly, but Columbus Crew, Nashville, LA Galaxy, San Jose Earthquakes. I do believe that is the California Classico, Galaxy, San Jose Earthquakes. The two Eliteserien games, Fredrikstad match and the Bodo Glimt match are watchable too. Copa Libertadores, remember, and Copa Sudamericana, and of course, French Open tennis, men's and women. And we've got Betting Weekly Tennis Live coming up in about an hour and a quarter with Nigel and Mitch Michaels. Just before we go, that Norwegian game tomorrow, I said I would touch on it. Brann against Molde. For me, a clear bet here on Brann. Brann definitely to win this game, and also a nibble on the -1 Asian handicap at plus 165. They're -112 on the money line. Molde are in a huge mess. This is not the Molde that we've seen in Europe in the last couple of years. They've brought a new manager in, per Mattis Hogmo. It feels like Ruben Amorim coming into Manchester United. He's completely changed the system, the style and everything, and it isn't working. He hasn't got the players at Molde right now. He's under huge pressure. I think some of the fans want him out already. They are down in 12th position, just 8 points from 8 games. And I think they're in trouble here. Brann are unbeaten since the opening day of the season. A Brann side that will be entering Champions League qualifying actually in late July, early August. So they want to keep an eye out there. -112. I think it's a really good bet tomorrow. James, what's the best bet then from that you'd be given out on any of these two games today?
Across all these markets and across these two matches, for me, it's the both teams to score yes pick in the Real Betis-Chelsea game. We talked about the price moving. I was very happy with my -110 earlier in the week, which has gone now, but that's still my best bet of the day.
Yeah, thanks very much for that. Just looking at a few of the comments here. Harry Doherty's on about red cards and cards. I think he meant the Conference League final. We did touch on that yesterday, and Rory Barlow went over 2.5 cards for Betis, which I think is a good shout. Simon was on about Paris FC. It's going to be interesting summer for them, how they're going to get on. Quick answer, yes or no, will they survive, James?
Yes, 100% yes, they will.
Oh, that's a really interesting one. And, we'll see what we can do in terms of, 2-3 weeks before the season there. So, I mean, that's a good suggestion. Inter Miami, I'm just not sure about them, SW. He keeps asking, right? Anyone in the chat know a bet for the Inter Miami game? Then put it in. The California Classico, it's a great name, isn't it, Byron?
Brilliant.
The LA Derby, I think that's El Trafico. They have some great names over there. And yet the tennis do catch Nigel and Mitch Michaels in an hour and a quarter, same channel, Betting Weekly Tennis Live, Betting Weekly Hardball with Doug as well later on, and Betting Weekly Fast Break. But James, that is it. We have done our Europa League and Conference League shows this season. Delighted to say I'm on with you next month. Me and you, Club World Cup, things like that. Yeah, it's going to be fun, isn't it?
It's going to be great. So thank you to you, Steve, first of all, for your company and insight on all of these Europa League and Conference League nights we've done this year, and also obviously to all the viewers for the comments and the feedback and the joining in with the shows. It's been a really, really enjoyable season covering this competition.
Yeah, thank you very much, James. Just absolutely echo those words. Really appreciate you. And also anyone who's been in for our Europa and Conference League live shows this season. We've done really well on them. Tomorrow, we've got Dan Roebuck and Nigel Seeley on Betting Weekly Live. And then on Friday, I'm going to be previewing the Champions League final with Jack. So don't miss those shows. But yeah, from this particular edition, it's going to be goodbye. Best of luck, whatever you're taking. Enjoy this Conference League final. We hope it's going to be a cracker. Remember to gamble responsibly. But for now, goodbye to you all. And I'll see you next time on Betting Weekly Live. Take care.